This is the talk show that takes a no-holds-barred approach to politics, where truth and integrity are the standard and the Constitution honored. From Renaissance Studios, this is Champion News Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net. We are your choice for the conservative voice. Today, our founder, Jack Roser, and myself have Charlie Kirk with us, and Charlie Kirk is a young man from Turning Point. He's the founder of the organization. And Jack, how are you today?
Well, I'm fine, but they've seen me before, but they haven't seen him. And this guy is a mover and shaker of young years that a marvelous experience you've done with your life. And I understand that you're a bit of a critic of the school system. Well, what is the matter with you that you're criticizing the system that has made you so wonderful?
Well, you know, it's not all because of the school system. There have been some very good teachers, and through my years at Wheeling High School, I enjoyed my time. But there were a lot of times where I felt that the teachers were pushing an alternative agenda, and that our textbooks were written in certain ways to make us think things that were not true. They were trying to remove the founding documents from the U.S. history classes. They said they were not relevant. They really spent a lot of time on the progressive era, and our economics textbook was written by Paul Krugman from the New York Times, and in it was factually incorrect data. I stood up to my teacher several times, and I try to get other students to do the same.
Now, I have a question for you. What do you mean they removed our founding documents?
They made a motion to try to remove it. It did not pass in the school board, but they tried to remove it from our U.S. history class.
Specifically our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence?
Well, they tried to remove from our U.S. history classes everything before 1860, saying it was not relevant.
That's stunning to me.
Now, it did not pass. It did not make the news, of course, but it showed that some people found that our founding documents no longer had relevancy in our schools, which is really concerning.
That is extremely concerning. What was the teacher's reasoning, Charlie, for our founding documents not having relevancy to our country right now?
Some educational people in our district said that we need to have a more progressive view of our country, and that everything post-1860 was more relevant to what the kids need to be learning. And I found that alarming, and again, that wasn't all the teachers in the district, but it was a select few, and even a few, if they are teaching that way, it's very concerning. Now,
you may or may not know this. What was the parental involvement in something like that?
Yeah.
Or first of all, the awareness level of parents, and then the involvement? It
was minimal, and parents have not been involved in school boards like they need to be. They do not run for school board. They don't show up to the meetings. Just the fact that Paul Krugman had an economics textbook approved and put into our public high schools is inexcusable. And that's,
who is Paul Krugman, and why is he relevant to this conversation? Who is he?
Okay, Paul Krugman is a nationally known Nobel Prize-winning economist from the New York Times. He writes a daily column. He also wrote the book Conscious of a Liberal, and he's a renowned collectivist.
Obama was given the prize from the same organization.
Right.
Their judgment wasn't so good there either.
And the school board decided to put Paul Krugman's textbook into the public school system, where, in quote, it said, "The Reagan tax cuts did not accelerate economic growth."
Really?
In our public schools. I wrote a piece for Breitbart.com exposing this lie in our public education school system, and it encourages the progressive train of thought into our students. And it's unfortunate because if a young person wants to get into economics, they're probably going to look at Paul Krugman as a credible figure, but he's not economically viable. His statistics do not add up, and he writes for a very partisan news source, the New York Times. He should not be in our public school system, and we need more students to stand up.
He's a propagandist.
Very similar to it. He said that 9/11 was a stimulus and created jobs. He thinks that a broken window creates jobs. This is an economic myth called the broken window fallacy. And it's what is being taught in our schools and unfortunately being pushed onto fellow students.
Well, I do know that some of the textbooks, I have a 15-year-old son, and I've got a lot of friends whose kids go to even some private schools. But they talk about communism versus capitalism, and capitalism is somebody having the whole cow to themselves, and communism is where everybody shares this cow. Do they embellish in theory. Do they make communism and socialism sound like a more desirable way to live, where it's just fairer?
Well, they do put a very big emphasis on the progressive era in the early 1900s, where they say that, oh, there's a problem, there must be a government to fix it. For example, Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, we had all the terrible meat factories, well, then we had to create the FDA. We had an unstable currency, we had to create the Fed. So the kids start to subconsciously feel that, oh, the government solves every problem. And we did a poll in our high school, in the local area, which economic system would be most prosperous to create wealth for the middle, lower, and upper class, for all people over the next 100 years. 28% said capitalism, 40% said socialism. The rest said they don't know the difference between socialism and capitalism.
Which was really the more intelligent answer.
Right. And
well, yeah, at least, I'd rather have them not know, because there's opportunity for education.
Right,
but
that's exactly what our group is doing, is getting these kids understanding the morality of free markets, the immorality of excessive borrowing.
So your group, what does that mean? You have a group. What does that mean?
Turning Point USA has turned into a national movement. It was launched June 5th. We have over 20 to 25 national chapters, and we have 30 to 50 student columnists from all over the country that contribute to our website. We give them a platform of empowerment, so they can write something, they can publish it, they can show their friends, their family.
But let me ask you a question.
Did you organize that while you were still in high school?
At the ends of high school and then throughout the summer, yes.
But you have a website. How specifically are you reaching out to this percentage? I think it's 40% that don't know the difference.
Right.
How specifically do you reach out to that 40% that's unsure, and then re-educate that other 40% that is obviously misled?
We're doing it in 3 specific ways. Number 1 is Facebook and Twitter. Social media is extremely important. We have 12,000 likes. We're on the cutting edge of social media for young people. The second of which is in July. We're hosting hopefully one of the biggest debate tournaments in the Midwest. We're planning to have 300 to 400 high school debate teams come and debate fiscal policy. The third is a very innovative way that we came up with, and it's to reach that 40% of kids that usually don't care about politics. We're hosting a 3-on-3 basketball tournament to get young people to come and play basketball. They leave with our t-shirt, and they leave with a little bit of literature. It's innovative, it's new, it's fresh. Not many think tanks think to do a basketball tournament. And that's the way we reach kids that are usually apathetic or they don't know, because we go to where they are. And that's what's innovative and creative about Turning Point USA.
So you're trying to do an outreach. Now, do you have things affiliated with the school? Because I know there are some young folks out of the Will County area too that have a youth program, and they reach out and they have meetings, and they've really tried to. Do you walk precincts and things like that?
No, we do not do specifically for any candidate, at least this last election cycle. And the reason is we go at it in a nonpartisan point of view. Now, we believe in fiscal responsibility, free markets, but instead of, we encourage civic participation. We encourage people to be interns. A majority of our people in our group were interns for Joe Walsh or Congressman Dold. We love that. But also, we educate in meetings and debates. Like, we hosted a debate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and we're starting a chapter there. We have 20 high schools and colleges represented where they have meetings, and they gather and they educate their peers in innovative ways, like through basketball tournaments. Or one of the chapters, they emailed me, they said, can we do an ultimate Frisbee competition for Turning Point? Like, how cool is that? Who would have thought of that otherwise? That's how you get college kids engaged in politics. You know, it's good to have the slideshow and the graphs, but we have to get them through the door first.
But you get them through the door and you do this Frisbee thing and you give them literature. What's enticing them to even open this up?
They give us their email. They have to like us on Facebook. They like us on Twitter. We tie them in perfectly, because through social media, it's kind of you lasso them in and then you reel them in later. Because these kids have their minds going in so many different directions that once you tie them in, they're going to be educated.
What topics are you mainly interested there? What topics are you?
The debt and the deficit. We think it's extremely relevant to our generation. We're going to have to pay it off, and it's immoral.
Do you relate that to socialism and the market?
We think that it's immoral, and we do call it socialistic behavior, absolutely. And we also focus on education. We think that every student should have a chance to learn, and we think that teachers are not being held accountable in our public school education system. To give some perspective, 50 teachers in the District 214 area earn $150,000 or more with no accountability. and you ask these students,
That'd be Arlington Heights.
right, the Arlington Heights area, Mount Prospect, Elk Grove, and Wheeling area. And most of the students even believe that's excessive. When the students believe it's excessive, you know that we need reform. And there are some great teachers that I've had in my life, but there are also teachers that take advantage of the system, and we need private sector reforms to make sure our education system is better for the students.
Why, that's going to be censoring the textbooks, isn't it?
Well, right now the textbooks are being shoved down our throat with bias.
Wasn't that censoring right there?
But-
and we got these lousy textbooks because the socialists censored our textbooks.
That's right.
But doesn't
And now
this-
when we would like to get something back a little bit more like what our founders intended and so forth, why then we're censoring the books.
Right.
Doesn't the
absolutely.
school
What
board
do you do
decide,
about
though?
that? Huh?
It's, one of the initiatives we're trying to do is, sorry, I don't mean to.
We're going to actually go to break. We'll be right back.